Hello everyone and welcome to the stress management series. We are going to discuss about self-isolation today. We have Mercy Hazarika Gogoi with us all the way from Fiji, and she is a counselor by profession, and uh, she is doing higher degree in Australia, also the University of Southern Queensland, Australia, right? And
Yeah.
her, her articles were also published on the journal in Fiji, the reputed journals, which are the Fiji Times and the Fiji Sun. And she is currently now doing research upon suicidal behaviors, right, in Fiji, and their patterns and their trends. And that is why we are very glad to welcome you, Mercy, to join with us and talk about the kinds of depression and the phases that the person goes through when he just isolates himself. Welcome, Mercy, here.
Thank you so much,
And
Jasmine. Thank you.
and also we have Manish Pratim Boragraha. You have seen him in our previous session. He is the founder of Modus Operandi, an NGO working for the conservation, spreading awareness about wildlife and the environment conservation. And he is also an ex-journalist as well. So welcome Manas again in our show.
Hey Mercy. Hey Jasmine. Thank
Hi.
you so much,
And
and thank you Mercy for sparing your time. It might be night out there, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah, it is at 10:30, but it's absolutely
Okay.
fine.
All right. Thank you for your time, though.
thank
Yes,
you for your
Jasmine.
time.
My
I
pleasure.
believe you can carry on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely I can.
yeah, I wanted to begin with the kinds of depression there are. Like most of us, we all tell that, okay, this person is going through depression, but what kind of depression we first need to know. So would you enlighten us about what kinds of depression are there actually?
Okay. Thank you, Jasmine, for connecting with me. And this is a very important topic actually to discuss about depression. And when you already spoken about isolation, why isolation? Some people they prefer to be isolated.
Mhm,
So the reasons for someone to prefer to be isolated for a certain period of time.
mhm.
So it is linked with depression very deeply. So
Yeah,
let me first talk a little bit more about isolation, and then I'll come to depression.
yeah,
So when we talk about isolation, we need to understand why a person would like to be isolated. Uh, See, some would like to be isolated to do some very productive and constructive work. Let's say, for example, the researchers, the scholars, the writers, they would go into isolation to be more
Right.
productive and more
Right.
constructive. You know, they
mhm,
prefer solitude, right?
right,
Because that is the time they keep themselves away from any sort of distraction, and that kind of isolation is very productive. Okay,
mhm,
and there's another kind of some people they go on into isolation when they are going through a grieving phase. See,
Yeah.
for example, if someone has lost somebody in their life, you know, somebody died in the family, or maybe
Yeah.
somebody lost a job, you see. So
Mm.
they go
Mm.
through a phase of depression, a phase that's very normal for
mhm,
everyone, you
mhm,
see. And
Mm.
they isolate themselves from everyone. And during that phase, as you mentioned about different kind of depression, they go through acute depression during this short phase of isolation. You see, the
Okay.
grieving phase. And during this phase of isolation, they go through all the different kinds of symptoms. You see, the symptoms we usually have in depression, like of motivation, yeah, lack of
Mm. Lack of
enthusiasm,
motivation.
uh,
Mm.
yes, irritability, yes,
Mm.
then lack of hope. They feel very hopeless,
Mm.
and even insomnia. You know, some
yeah,
people
Right.
they can't sleep, and some
True. True.
oversleep, even lack of
True.
appetite. So these are
mhm,
the various symptoms one goes through when they are
Mm.
into isolation for that grieving phase. Okay, but
Mm.
eventually an individual is able to come out of this phase. You see,
mhm,
Maybe
Yeah.
just, yeah, someone loves somebody, they are into isolation, they are into this grieving phase, and eventually, slowly, they get back to the normal life. Yes.
No,
But the problem begins when a person goes through isolation, goes through depression, and they go deep into the sinkhole of depression. They're not
Mhm.
able to come out of it after that short period of time. You
Yes.
see,
correct.
then we say that this is somewhere we really need to help that individual, or that individual need to help themselves.
Yeah.
There comes depression.
Hmm.
So isolation is basically a symptom of depression. You
Yeah.
Okay.
see.
So,
True.
Okay.
and when the person goes through isolation, maybe he or she takes a lot of time to get a grab. And how long should a person should isolate himself or herself, you think?
Well, we can't say how long. It depends, it depends from person to person. Some person,
Hmm.
they take about 2 weeks or 3 weeks to grieve and to get back to normal. And some takes a
Right.
bit longer. Yeah.
Hmm.
So it depends from individual to individual. Okay.
Hmm.
But if an individual continues in that grieving phase for more than 2 weeks with
Hmm.
all the symptoms of depression, I mean, about six of the symptoms, as I mentioned, lack of motivation, lack of enthusiasm, or
Right.
irritability, all
Right.
these symptoms, along with antisocial behavior,
Hmm.
which
Mm.
comes
Mm.
to isolation. Okay.
Right.
So if a person has the symptoms, then it continues for more than 2 weeks or 3 weeks,
Hmm.
and it continues for 6 months even, then we call that a person is actually suffering from major
Hmm.
depression. As I mentioned,
Right.
acute depression for the
Mm.
grieving phase.
Hmm.
If
Mm.
it prolongs, it goes into major depression
Hmm.
or
Okay.
chronic depression.
Then
Okay.
what do you
Okay.
suggest that if a person is going through this phase for too long, say a month or so, then what should their loved ones do? Should they reach out? Because the person dealing with this phase, he himself or herself will say that, don't bother me right now, and it may take, not bothering them will take just 1 month, and their loved ones will be stressed for them, and they will be like, should I reach out or should I not reach out, or should I just let them figure it out? And by that time it may be also little bit worryful about them. So what do you suggest that the other people or relatives should reach them out if it gets too long?
That's amazing. That's such an important question, Jasmine. Thank you for asking. So, see, as I mentioned, that individual difference comes here, right? But again, we need to understand that person,
Mm.
how he is feeling right at the moment. If he has a circle of people around him, that sense of belongingness, you see, then that person is,
True. True. Is
he
able to
will
connect.
be able, yeah,
Mm.
he will be
Mm.
able to come back
Mm.
to the normal life. Okay, again, it depends how he is feeling right at that moment. If the loved ones, for example, sees a person, a family member suffering or going through depression, and just do not understand how to reach out or how to help. First of all, the loved ones need to understand his
Mm.
own mental state. Okay, his what what is going on? Is he suffering from lack of motivation? Is he able to do his daily activities? Is he
Right.
able to walk out of the room and have his food and go do the normal activities? And what kind of conversation he is, you know, what he is saying? Is
Right.
he into self-harming behavior, or is he ever talking about suicidal tendency? So those things need to be taken care of. So if an individual is showing some kind of mm, negative uh, feelings, the feeling of hurting himself or herself, or expressing some suicidal ideation, then the loved ones need to take it very seriously.
Hmm.
Right. Right. True.
Yeah. So sometimes the person dealing with such issues, they don't want to even talk, and they don't want to even open up about it. So it becomes very difficult for the relatives and their loved ones to even understand what's going on in their mind. And when they are in self isolation, they themselves go in a various kinds of overthinking and various kinds of moods, and they start to compare themselves and start losing confidence on them, and they feel like this burden that they have to meet everyone's expectation. And when they go out, uh, they don't want to meet any people. So what do you suggest, that should they go more socializing, should they push themselves to go socializing more into more public events and all?
Okay. See, when an individual is going through depression, then that individual is emotionally very vulnerable. You see, they get triggered very easily. So they are not in any position to deal with negative comments or sometimes sarcasm, or sometimes, if someone comes up with something which is not positive. So otherwise, if he would have been able to handle such kind of environment, such kind of situation, but if he is or she is going through depression, then it will be very difficult, and it might trigger the situation. That individual, it might trigger the situation, and he or she might go more into depression. Okay, so I suggest that if an individual is suffering from depression or feeling very low, it is very, very important that his social circle to be very limited to the close ones with whom he can connect. You see, who values, whom he feels that person values me or understands or empathize.
Yeah.
So his connection, he should not just randomly go out and socialize, because in that environment he might face some kind of situations, you see, which might trigger him more. So he needs to keep himself very pristine, very, um, just take for example, when we get sick physically. So what we do, we try to avoid the junk food. We focus on very healthy food, right? We eat the boiled kind of, whatever is very healthy and organic. Similarly, when we are emotionally very, very low, we need to surround ourselves with people who are very positive, who fill us up with positivity. You see, who gives us more positive vibes rather than random people who might bring something negative, which is not healthy for us. Because that phase, that time, we become very, very vulnerable emotionally.
Hmm. So Manish, what do you think? Like you always advocate about being confident and always keeping the circle positive. What would you like to add on this?
Yes, what I would like to say, Mercy has correctly pointed out one thing, that, when a person is depressed, or probably once you're going through that particular phase, it is really very crucial for first the family to understand and recognize those factors, right? As Mercy said, I mean, that is very important, because that person is not able to express it, right? So if the parents or the friends, if they could notice it, that is a very good thing. That's the first thing that should be done. Second thing which she said, which she stressed upon, was like, the kind of people that he's going to interact with in the question that you have, Jasmine has asked. So I think that is where the crucial, the point is, because once he tries to go out, because it is a tendency usually, people would tell, if someone is not feeling good, you know what, go and take a hike, go out for a break, go out with the friends, but you don't know what kind of comments you're going to receive from them, right? Because your state of vulnerability, your state of, in that state of dilemma, you can say, because you're not able to make up your mind, you're stuck somewhere. And then if you receive any kind of negative vibes from people, I'm sure things are only going to get even more negative, and probably he might get even more depressed. So yes, that point is very crucial, Mercy. I mean, really, that's the point that people tend to ignore, because you're already vulnerable, and you're making yourself out to a zone or an environment where you might receive a lot of negativity, a lot of downs, a lot of sarcasm, a lot of those things, right? So it's important to keep your head intact, I think. So yeah, I mean, I will completely agree with Mercy on this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what should be done. I mean, because we are vulnerable, if we are vulnerable during that time. So yes, I completely agree to that. And being
Mm.
self-confident about your fact is, everyone I advocated because I'm that kind of a person, and probably there might be other people also like me. But sometimes some people are not able to get out of it. So
Mhm.
that is the reason the last time we tried to build up the first session, as Jasmine suggested, it was entirely Jasmine's idea about, why not talk about self-confidence? So if we try to build up that self-confidence within us, so that thing could actually help you to come out of things. If you build up that esteem, if you build up that self-respect and self-love, I think the most important thing is self-love.
Self-love,
If you
yes,
do not have
true.
self-love, if you do not have, that is not being selfish, but you got to love yourself, right? I mean, you have to be happy about it. I'm like, whenever I'm talking to people, I'm like very happy, cheerful, and talking about the, but yes, I'll also go through the downtime, but you have to love yourself to actually receive love, and probably understand and be have that gratitude, have that humility to understand others pain and put yourself in others shoes. So these are the attributes which we have I have learned in moral science in school, maybe. So that might also help us in a way, to come out of it. Or that is my suggestion. I'm no psychiatrist, I've not done anything, but that's all the life experiences that I have had.
I also
And since
agree
I
to
work with
that.
the
Moral science is a very important
right.
aspect that we have come across because it has taught us
Mm,
many things like
right.
respecting the moral values also, and it's very
Correct.
important in our life. Like we can buy anything with money. The money comes and goes, things comes and goes,
Mm.
but the real strength is our moral strength. We have to
Moral
build
strength.
upon this, and that is why we're having this beautiful discussion. Over to you,
Right.
Very
Manas, again.
true.
Yeah. Yeah, I won't take more than a minute. I mean, not even a minute, maybe. I was trying to stress on the point in which, because we in Modus Operandi, we work for the environment, right? We work with the youth. So our major work is to encourage the youth to come into environmental activities, because environmental activities will help you to, de-stress yourself from the daily mundane life and the robotic life that we live, our jobs, our daily chores, the regular, the routine stuff. So while dealing with the youngsters, I have found actually some people, some students, and people from who are doing their masters or other places, they do go through the depression. What am I going to do once I'm done with my masters? So I have no clue which direction should I be taking. And they tend to see their friends, getting selected in some reputed organization and started working. So they tend to get depressed. Sir, we want to do this. So what do you suggest? We tend to feel down. We are trying to attend all the seminars, all this, all that. But then, this session, that is the reason I wanted to be associated with Mercy and Jasmine, with both of you, because this will also help me to, spread this message given by both of you to all those students as well, right? Because if they tend to see this particular session, and they will get inspired by many things, that you don't have to be down. The world is not ending if you fail somewhere. So
Mhm.
you just fail somewhere, that's okay. I mean, that's all right. I mean, everybody does. So yeah, I mean, that is my entire purpose of coming into this, and I really wanted to thank you both of you, that you're coming up
Thanks
with
to
this
you
kind of
for
a
being
topic, right?
Thanks to you for
So
being
yeah.
here because the girl from Agartala is doing this series in collaboration with Modus Operandi. Modus Operandi is working for the wellness of the environment, and why not? This pandemic or no pandemic, the stress is the biggest pandemic
Mm,
in the world, and
right.
also comes into wellness and the wellness of the environment. So
Right.
yeah, that is why we are collaborating in this series now.
Right.
So
True. True.
Mercy, you are doing research in suicidal behaviors. So would you like to enlighten us about your research and how you are dealing? Like you have also dealt with voluntarily. You have also counseled many patients with mental disorders and depression, and what kind of phases they go through. Would you enlighten us?
Okay, if you're asking me about my research, then presently I'm doing my research on suicide in Fiji. So as of now, I'm doing my scoping review, which is a kind of reading uh, the literature where I am trying to identify what is known about suicide in Fiji by reading all the literatures, and I'm trying to find the research gap. so that by identifying the research gaps, I can know what research needs to be done to fill that gap, or to to understand better way what is required to reduce suicide in Fiji, because suicide in Fiji is a major social problem. The people major a lot of cases are coming up recently in the Fiji. Okay, the suicidal cases, suicidal behavior, attempted suicide cases. Even in the when I was working in the university, I came across some students who had this kind of suicidal ideation because of various reasons. And the reasons mostly is because of the relationship issues. So when someone goes through, breakup, or so the conflict in a relationship, then they always try to harm themselves, and sometimes they even go to the extent of attempting suicide. So yes, so my study is focused on suicide in Fiji. So if you want to know more about suicide, I got a lot to say, the reasons why, but that would
Of
take,
course.
That will take
long
many
Yeah.
sessions.
Yeah. Okay.
So I quickly wanted to discuss about this self-isolation thing that we are talking about today briefly. So when a person isolates himself, then the phases that he goes through, like overthinking, and that comes the societal behavior and wanting to harm themselves. So how can we help them if they want to harm themselves, and how can we even uh, let them not to and reach out more? What
Okay.
do you suggest, Mercy?
All right. As I mentioned before about the what you call the isolation phase, the grieving phase. You see, when an individual is able to come out of this phase, that's very normal. We usually go through a grieving phase due to various difficult life experiences. Yes. And but when that experience is prolonged, I mean, when the isolation prolongs, then we develop major depression. So if an individual wants to come out of this situation, first and foremost, need to understand that he or she is suffering from depression. Need to recognize the symptoms. Okay, and a person would like to or would want to come out of depression only when that person has self-love, or as I mentioned before about the that connection, when you feel deep connection with someone. For example, a woman lost her husband. She goes through a grieving phase, but she has a son, so she would want to live for her son. You see,
Right.
that connectedness, the feeling of belongingness to her son,
Belonging.
the reason why she would want to live her life, she would really try to come out of the situation so that she
Correct.
can do something, to take care of her child. So that sense of
Correct.
belongingness, it could be with her, with any people around, and also self-love. If you love yourself immensely, you see, then you would really want to come out of that situation.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is very, very important.
True.
Okay.
yeah.
True.
And also
And
if you have the, sorry. Yeah.
no, you
Hmm.
continue.
Okay.
Carry on. Yeah.
And also, yeah, and also if that person also has the sense of hope that the situation what is happening around will change,
True.
then
True.
also that person really would want to come out of depression. So
Right.
these are the different reasons, or that would help an individual to come out of it. Okay,
Come out of.
but
Right.
if an individual lacks this conditions in their life, then it will be very difficult. Then that individual would need help from the family members, or from the from the will need the social support around.
Right.
Okay, so because you see, when an individual goes through depression, they become so they don't have any sense of motivation. They become so demotivated that sometimes they don't want to get up from the bed to grab something to eat. So you can't expect that individual to do something for themselves, you see, to change or to come out of this situation. So that, and
So
at that moment,
the family or the friends have to be very patient with them, knowing
right.
the fact that they are going through this depression.
Yes, and there the family members' role comes in. So there they have to manage, they have to, talk to that individual, empathize
Right.
that individual, and need to, try to find ways to talk to a professional, to a counselor, to a psychologist.
Right.
And I also would like to say here, when a person goes to depression, people suggest of taking antidepressant,
Yes,
medication.
yes, yes,
But
yes,
yes,
yes.
yeah. But I personally suggest that before going for any kind of medication, therapy, the various kinds of
Mm.
therapy, the cognitive
Mm.
behavioral therapy, rational
Right.
emotive behavioral therapy, you see. So these therapies, if it doesn't work, then
Mhm.
they should go for medication. But without trying any therapy, without trying
Right.
counseling sessions, so because the medication, they do have side effects. So it will, there is a chance of relapse. You might feel better for
Right.
about 6 months, but then again, eventually, the condition
Mm.
might, prevail
Deteriorate.
again, and you might,
Yeah.
yeah, and you might have to, your dose might increase, and there
It
are
will
a lot of
increase.
side
Yes.
effects with that. So it is
Mm.
very
Mm.
important that you first try psychotherapy, you first try
Mm.
counseling, you first
Mm.
try everything else, the talking therapy with someone whom you can trust. I always suggest a professional. So there, if
Mm.
it doesn't work, then it's very suggestible that you should go for medication then.
Mm.
Right.
Right. And to that, I also want to add about self-love, that I think the outlook should be different. I'm working on this thing that every one of us, we look at the same thing, but we should look at it in a different way. Like,
Mm.
yeah, we should accept that we are going to have problems after problems, and it doesn't end. One goes and another comes. So the
Mm.
important thing is that we keep our circle positive, and also it should be okay that even if some people don't like us, also sometimes people get very demotivated when they
Right.
don't get likes, when they don't get good feedback, and they are like, oh, I'm just nothing, I'm not good enough,
Yeah. Nobody knows me,
or
kind of.
maybe
Yeah.
they,
Mm.
yeah, they don't get good response, and they get demotivated. And
Right. Right.
I just want to tell to the viewers that it's okay to be uh, not liked by some people, because everyone cannot like us, and it should be okay, and we should accept this fact. And yeah, there are some things that we will not like on others, and the same thing goes for us, that some people will not like some things in us. So that should be fine, and keep yourself motivated, and keep your
Motivated.
circles positive. It's very important to keep our circles positive and keep on talking,
Right.
sharing your heart out to someone.
Yes, that's
So
very important.
yeah, and and this, I want to know about this thing that you have took up about the relapse. When a person goes back to relapse, that like he gets well after 6 months, and then he gets back to again this phase of depression and not wanting to talk to anyone, then I really want to understand about this fact, that like what can be done about this relapse. Like, just in short, we should okay, the we are also running out of time, so just in short, I would like you to just touch it up a little bit, like
Uh,
about how do we deal with relapse and all, and suicidal behaviors. Again, like, we can just wrap it up by touching it up a little bit for
okay.
our audience.
So relapse usually happens when a person suffers from a disorder called mood disorder, the bipolar disorder, you see. So, it usually happens in bipolar disorder, a person goes through severe depression, and then the mania phase when they feel very elated, very happy. So when you go through depression and you really suffer for a prolonged period of time, and you go to the medication or any kind of treatment, you do feel better. But when you're suffering from bipolar, the relapse is very, very common. So there you have to go through a psychologist. You need the psychological treatment like the therapies, and maybe have to go through medication. That's where, relapse is very common there.
So it is important to know for us that if it is bipolar disorder or not, and how much is the intensity of the depression,
Yes.
and it should be addressed and checked by a professional, a counselor or a psychotherapist or a professional, right?
There are various kinds of psychological tests, like the depression, anxiety, and stress scale. So where we can identify the level of stress, anxiety, and depression of an individual. So through that test, we can always know the level of stress, depression, and we can always suggest the kind of treatment required.
Yeah.
So that's how we always identify.
Thank you so much, Mercy, for joining us all the way from Fiji at this time. It is night at your place right now, and we are going to even, I hope so, that we are going to even make this series even better with you, and we will talk even about personality disorders and other aspects which are related to depression in our next series also. And this, it has been a very nice discussion with you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you
And
so much.
also,
Thank you so much, Mercy. Thank you so much, Mercy, for sparing your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you. It was really nice talking to you all. It's a
Yeah,
wonderful
we certainly
discussion.
look forward. We certainly look forward that you keep on doing your good work, the kind of work that you're doing. I mean, people really do not know what you're doing, and we want people to know also the kind of work that you were involved into, because that's something very humane, and we should endorse. I mean, people everywhere should also pick up something from this particular session, and I'm sure everyone is able to take anything positive that you're able to take from this session. Please take it.
yeah.
Thank you so
And
much, Manas. Thank you.
You're welcome.
and also, Manas, thank you so much for joining us in this series. And
Pleasure is all
I
mine.
would like to tell all our viewers that even if we have this even if we are not complete in ourselves, and we are all construction under progress, so we need to understand that, and we need to understand every aspect. Which we will in our series, we will all understand, and we will get stronger day by day. Keep on watching our series, and we will uplift each other in our every series. So you stay all well, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.